And welcome to the McDonald's Hendricks County Sports Show on Audio Sports Online, also on 1610 AM XRB and XRBradio.com. I'm your host, Brian Scott. Joining me as my co-host this week is Mr. Christopher Worley, and joining us is the head football coach of the Avon Orioles, Mr. Mark Bless. The Hendricks County Sports Show is brought to you by our title sponsor, McDonald's, College Prospects of America, and BMO Harris Bank. I bring in the coach, Mark Bless, of the Avon Orioles. Orioles 1-3, lost a heartbreaker on Friday to the 10th-ranked Fishers Tigers by the score 26-25, and Alex Sahakian 47-yard field goal in the final minute. That was the game decider. And, Coach, when we look back at this game, you and I were kind of talking before the show. It's a gut-wrencher, and you can look at a play here or there, but it was really an exciting and fun football game, and one that you can come away looking pretty positive about how your team played.
I think so, Brian. As you mentioned, it was a real exciting game for a spectator, let alone a coach. And, I went back and watched the game again this week, and it's an enjoyable game to watch, just, a little frustrating on our end, coming out 1 point behind. But I was real proud of our players. We hung in there, we battled. Our guys played really hard and gave 100% effort, and we had opportunities, obviously, to beat a very good Fishers team.
You've now played three teams with highly prolific offenses. When you think of Hamilton Southeastern, Fishers, Westfield has proven to be very, very good offensively. Defensively, I think you've played pretty well. You even ended up with a safety in last Friday night's game.
Right.
It was a intentional grounding in the end zone. Zach Williams, I think, delivered the pressure. Defensively, your team, I thought, has played pretty well.
I agree. I really like our defense. I think we fly around very well to the ball. We play with a little bit of an attitude to get to the ball carrier, and I think you need to do that. We're led by our front seven up front. Our D-line and linebackers really like them against the run. Seems like they do a nice job stuffing the run. Probably a little bit of Achilles' heels is still, our pass coverage. And we've faced three very good quarterbacks that are hard to defend because they can throw and run, so it makes them pretty difficult to defeat. But all in all, I think our defense has played very well.
I've seen a great improvement, especially in your linebacking play. You've seen T.J. Wilson. He's moved in from outside linebacker to inside linebacker. Zach Williams provided the pressure that led to the safety. And then you've got David Griffith just flying all over the ball.
Right. Zach does a tremendous job for us. He's a lot like David. He makes sure, he understands it. He gets it. He makes sure that we're in the correct alignments. But he's capable of making some great plays for us. He's put a lot of pressure on quarterbacks throughout the season. And, moving TJ inside, TJ's a little bit thicker, a little bit stronger probably, and he's a good run stopper. And then you throw in Chad Piatek playing off the edge. Chad brings us a very good pass rush and does a nice job containing.
We'll be talking with Chad Piatek later. He is the College Prospects of America Athlete of the Week. We'll be talking to Chad a little bit later in the show. Offensively, got some great contributions. Of course, sophomore quarterback Brandon Peters, 12 of 22, 183 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Right now, Brandon, I think it's now 2 complete games that he hasn't thrown an interception. Been very smart with the football, and he's been finally delivering on some of those long routes that you try to hit every week. You hit the one right at the beginning of the second half, the 80-yard hookup with Cress Kimbrough.
Yeah, and I think they've developed into a pretty good combination. Cress has a breakaway speed for us, and he can do some things. I really like his progression. He's really, he's only played football for 2 years now. And to me, he might be one of the best hidden receivers in the state of Indiana. Back with Brandon's doing a very good job of now understanding our concepts of our offense and what we're looking for. He's still able to extend plays, but I think he's become a little more intelligent with the football, taking care of it. And he proved to have a nice run the other night when he broke the pocket and picked up about 20, 25 yards.
Unfortunately for the Orioles in last week's game, we take a look at the stats, and you and I were talking before the show. anybody that would take and pick up the Avon Oriole stat sheets would say, man, this is an awesome football team, should be 3-1. Unfortunately, the Orioles are 1-3. It's been penalties and turnovers the past 4 games. This time you have 2 turnovers, kind of lead to a 14-point swing. David Griffith with a fumble on the punt return, and then David Shaw, which I'm sure the young man is just devastated by, fighting for that extra yard, fighting to get the ball into the end zone. Unfortunately, he ends up fumbling the ball at about the half-yard line.
Right, and that's difficult because, it's a fine line. You want your running backs to fight for extra yardage, especially when you're that close to the goal line. And, looking at it on film, second guessing, you're wondering if he was in. The kid from Fisher's made a nice play coming up and kept his feet. And David was just trying to drive his legs to get in the end zone and, probably got the ball punched out. So that was very unfortunate. But, we want our backs fighting for extra yards, but we just got to protect the ball a little bit better. And on their opening punt, when we stopped them and forced them to punt on their first series, David's thought process was he didn't want that ball to bounce and roll another 20 to 30 yards, and just couldn't quite get underneath it quick enough. But he's thinking about what area is best for the team, and he knew field position was going to be crucial, and it was unfortunate, but sometimes that's part of the game.
David Shaw, as you mentioned, he had the fumble, but he also had 20 carries, 149 yards, another good game for the young man. You trailed at half, came back in the second half, got the touchdown. Really a seesaw battle, and when it comes down to a 47-yard field goal into the wind, you just sometimes got to tip your cap to the young man for kicking the field goal.
And it was an impressive kick. Actually, I was trying to call timeout before the ball was snapped, and I was out to the numbers. But obviously, with a lot of yelling, the referees didn't hear me. And I don't know if that would have helped at all. But you got a timeout left, you might as well try it. The young man kicked a nice kick right down the middle into a slight breeze. So, it's pretty respectable when a high school kicker can do that with the game on the line.
So the Orioles played very well. Again, unfortunately, you come out with a loss. So far this season, the first and the fourth quarter for your team has been a little bit on the slow side. You come out well in the second quarter. You come out well out of the locker room to start the second half. But right now your opponent's seemingly getting the jump in that first quarter.
Right, and that's kind of been our past history here in the last few years. And, we've tried a little bit of everything, which way to try to get our guys most motivated or fired up to play a game. And really, I look back at it. Our players have to come out and be ready to play because they're self-ignited. They know how to do it. And, that's one area that we're trying to work on, having a fast start.
You'll have another chance this Friday. It's, around here, I guess they just simply call it the game. The Brownsburg Bulldogs will make their way into Hendricks Regional Health Stadium to take on the Orioles. This is a game that pretty much doesn't matter what records are, doesn't matter what anything is. It's just a big-time rivalry between two great schools. Last year you went to Brownsburg, and they pretty much came right out of the gate and guns blazing, and before you knew it, you were down big. Was it a matter of just not getting ready, or did they just come out shooting on all cylinders?
Well, no. Number one, they were pretty good last year. They were a strong team, and we were still trying to find our way with a few injuries, and they came out, and you're right, brought it to us. But I think the difference was, they were a more defined team, and we were still trying to find our roles, so to speak. And I thought we came out and hung in there, kind of took the punches, if you will. And, I think we still had an opportunity, mid-game, mid to third quarter. And then I think once they broke a big run with Dutra, that kind of put the finalizing on it. But, this is the first year where, since I've been at Avon, where we're going to play Brownsburg on our field, because 2 years ago we played them in Lucas Oil. So I think our players are excited for the opportunity to get to host this game.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Coach Bless, we talk about in a rivalry game like this, and Brian mentioned to throw out the records. But I think in this game, both teams being 1-3, and they're going to be so hungry and almost desperate for a win, that I think that counts to make this more intense, even if one was 2-1 or whatever.
Absolutely.
I think they both want to win this game really bad.
Because I think you, Chris, you look in the past where maybe our records are reversed or somebody's undefeated. Maybe somebody's fighting to knock somebody off. Now I think we're both fighting to climb that ladder, so our season can progress forward. And I think that brings a lot to it. Yes, absolutely.
You watch Brownsburg, Coach Comer there is always that flex bone offense. He's got one very, very talented running back in Toksak and Rabati.
Yes. We remember him last year as a freshman. He made some big plays in that game. And, he's a year older, so that means he's a little bit stronger, a little bit bigger, maybe even a little bit faster. So we know we got to, make sure we keep an eye on him and try to keep him contained. Probably the most difficult thing with this offense, it's hard to simulate in practice. Our scout team, they try to do the best they can, and, that's a very difficult offense to simulate.
You saw something similar with Harrison, but, of course, at the time you saw Harrison. They have senior quarterback Jake Lasky, who tried his best but didn't really have the talent around him. But coming off that game, did you get a little bit of a feel for it?
I would say we were exposed to it, yes. And who knows for sure, to what extent. But I think at least to our players' mind that we were exposed to it, so we do have an idea and understanding of what they're trying to do.
You're going to we saw last week, again, the progression of Richie Steinmetz, bringing him more into the passing game. What other, as you progress your offense now through the season, what other things are you trying to get accomplished?
Well, I think first and foremost, as always in the offense that I coach, we got to be able to run the ball to be successful. And everybody knows that. I'm not hiding any secrets with that. And I think that our run game is getting a little stronger. We get Derek Tennant back this week, which we're happy to see Derek back on the field. He's been a tremendous scout team quarterback for the last 4 weeks. So it's good for him that he's kind of paid his dues and now he's ready to play. Combinations with him and David Shaw and Taiwan, that's obviously a plus for us. I think our fullbacks have really progressed. And obviously, if we're able to run the ball, we want to be able to have some play-action pass, some 3-step, some sprint out, some 5-step. And I think, as you mentioned, I think our offense is growing, especially with the maturity that Brandon Peters is getting playing quarterback.
You mentioned Derek Tennant coming back, and now that could give you a very, very a luxurious commodity having Tennant and Shaw. Do you see putting them both in the backfield at one time, or are you pretty much going to start more of a tandem situation?
Well, we're not to that stage yet. We want to make sure Derek feels comfortable running our offense instead of somebody's scout offense. And we'll gradually work him in. And you think about it, it'd be nice like we did 2 years ago with Charles Davis and Matt Gibson. They were two pretty similar backs we had on the field at the same time, and sometimes that creates a pretty difficult situation to stop.
You talk about it's going to be an exciting atmosphere coming up on Friday night with the first game against the Bulldogs at now Hendricks Regional Health Stadium.
Correct.
I'm sure it's one of those things when you've got your kids just also kind of chomping at the bit to get them at home. How's been the excitement level and the practice level this week?
We had a very spirited practice today. I guess you could put it that way. We always finish with a little ones against ones goal line period, and it was very spirited, and there were guys flying around on both sides. And I told them, I said, that's what you need to expect every play in this week's game. I said, because Brownsburg's going to come after us, and hopefully we're getting after Brownsburg. And that probably 10 plays that we ran, that's the style of football we need to see Friday night.
That is the head coach of the Avon Orioles, Mr. Mark Bless. As the Avon Orioles, they will be taking on the Brownsburg Bulldogs at Hendricks Regional Health Stadium. We'll have that game right here on Audio Sports Online, also on 1610 AM XRB and XRBradio.com. The pregame show with Chris Worley and myself will begin at 6:45. Kickoff between the Bulldogs and the Orioles will be at 7 o'clock. Coach, we want to thank you for coming by. And good luck this week against the Bulldogs.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, when we come back, we hope to have Chad Piatek. We'll see if he has made his way in. And then we will be right back with more of the Hendricks County Sports Show right here on AudioSportsOnline.com. Right now at all Avon and Brownsburg McDonald's, you can check out the brand new Mighty Wings. Mighty Wings are hearty bone-in chicken wings that are crispy and breaded with a spicy kick. Available in 3-piece, 5-piece, or 10 pieces, a 3-piece is only $2.99 at all Avon and Brownsburg McDonald's. Are you a high school student athlete who would like to play at the next level, but are confused and unfamiliar with the college recruiting process? There is good news. College Prospects of America can help. We have been helping athletes get recruited since 1986. Right here in Central Indiana, we have representatives who offer personal and professional guidance to both male and female student athletes. Call us today at 317-650-4339 to learn all about recruiting and how we can help. Or come visit our booth this Friday, September 20th at the Plainfield High School football game. You only have one chance to get recruited. Act now. Contact College Prospects of America at 317-650-4339. Since 1984, BMO Harris Bank has grown to become one of the largest banks in the Midwest, serving personal, commercial, and affluent customers. Located locally at 610 West Northfield Drive in Brownsburg, we thank them for their sponsorship of the Hendricks County Coaches Show. Welcome back to the Hendricks County Sports Show on Audio Sports Online, also on 1610 AM XRB and XRBradio.com. This week we are at the Avon McDonald's on 267 and Rockville Road. Want to remind you, got to check out them Mighty Wings. It's football season, getting ready for the tailgating between the Orioles and the Bulldogs. Go over to McDonald's, get you a big plate full of those Mighty Wings, bring them over to tailgate. No better way to start the football game. I am joined right now with Chris Worley, my guest host tonight, and also our College Prospects of America Athlete of the Week is Chad Piatek. If you are wanting to know anything about recruiting, hey, go out to the Plainfield football game if you are in that area. Check them out. They'll have a booth out there as well. Get all your questions. If you want to know, maybe you've got a son or a daughter needs to get some help about college recruiting, they'll have a booth out there. Look for Megan Eganoff. They will be out there to answer all your questions. College Prospects of America. Chad Piatek, you are our guest today. How you doing, bud?
Great. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. You've had a pretty good game on Friday night, I would say.
Oh, yeah. It's a great game. Fishers.
Now, it's kind of a gut-wrenching game. You end up with a loss, but it looked like a fun game to play.
Yeah, it didn't end up on our side, but for losing by a point, it could go on either way.
Now, you were flying all over the field, made some nice hits, had, I think, a tackle for loss and making some real good pressure. You're kind of coming in, spelling other linebackers at times. How well did you feel your game was? Coach Bless already told me you made Top Gun.
Yeah, I was real excited for hearing that. Overall, I felt like I had a pretty good game, but as a unit, the defense played lights out. I felt everybody did their assignments. D-line through, safeties, cornerbacks, linebackers, everybody did their job. It didn't end up on our side, but everyone sold out.
Now, what I have noticed over the past few weeks, of course, calling your games, your linebacking core has really started to gel, I think, rather tight. You're in there, Zach Williams, T.J. Wilson. T.J., since they moved him to outside to inside. But your linebacking core, I think, is really becoming a strength in this defense.
Oh, yeah. We're flying around, getting to it every week at practice. Another one, Matt Thompson's really stepping up. He's a sophomore, and he's getting his feet underneath him. And we're starting to get everything together, fly around, have some fun.
Now, you'll be facing a real tough opponent and, of course, classic rival.
Oh, can't wait.
The Brownsburg Bulldogs will come in town. Now, as Coach Bless said, you guys haven't seen them at home in quite a while. So what's it like bringing them home?
Well, I haven't seen them at home. Last time I saw them at home was I was watching the game back in middle school. It was a sectional game, and it didn't go our way. But I'm just real excited. Fans, it's going to be crazy. The environment is always crazy. I'm expecting a great game.
Chad, now you may know some of the Brownsburg players. Do you know some of those guys, the senior? You've been around this rivalry for a little bit.
I know of them, just playing against them, but I haven't really talked to any of them. We're not real close. But
okay. Why is this game so special to you, the Brownsburg rivalry game?
Brought up around it. Just, I think Avon football, you think Brownsburg's the next thing.
Sure.
This is where, your memories are made. Other than, what you strive for the season, making the stay and all that, did you win Brownsburg week? That's what you think about.
Now, Chad, you wear number 31.
Yes, sir.
Defense. I just wonder how the kids been in the school building and classroom. I know it's only Wednesday, so you'll probably hear more, but have you been hearing a lot of that? Let's go beat Brownsburg and stuff like that?
It's all over school. You see signs everywhere. Just energy. That's the way to say it. It's a lot of energy around the school right now.
Now, Coach has talked about, and Brian's asking, sometimes it seems like you guys in some of your games maybe a little bit of a slow start in the first quarter. I imagine you would see much more energy to start this Brownsburg game.
We're starting off, like we said, at home, so there shouldn't be any trouble getting ready to go. We're going to have those home fans yelling, student sections going at it, and like you said, big rival game. I don't think anyone's going to have a trouble getting up and going for this one.
And there'll be a Brownsburg presence there, too, I promise you that.
Oh, always is.
Okay.
Now, you already faced them last year. It didn't quite go the way as Oriole fans wanted. You'll be seeing a lot of Mr. Akinrabate. What's one of the things you want to do to help contain him?
We got to keep him from breaking out. That's one of the main things. Just keep him from making big plays, keep him down in the backfield, and I think everything should go well.
Now, have you been playing football all your life?
I started playing football in 6th grade. All my friends played it going up. I started a little late, but yeah, I still play with some of my teammates. I even played Crest Kimbrough, played back with Cole Riley. We're on my 6th grade team. We played for AJA Youth League and just loved it ever since.
Now, what other positions you've been playing besides defensive linebacker?
Well, let's see here. I used to be a little bit bigger. Played offensive guard most of my life until going into high school. I played offensive guard in 8th grade. And then going into high school, I was looking like I was going to play a little running back or fullback. And I really wanted to. That was like one of my main dreams. Adrian Peterson was my idol. I told my coaches that during senior meetings. But they wanted me to play linebacker, and it just stuck.
Now, what do you like better, running through a linebacker or running through a running back?
Laying the hit.
Laying the hit.
Okay. I bet you wouldn't mind picking up a fumble, though, Friday night and taking off.
I'll have no problem for that.
Okay.
No problem.
And so getting ready for the big game, what are some of the other things? You got any pre-game superstitions you follow through as you get ready for a game?
Nothing too – I mean, I try and just overall just relax throughout the day. Try to eat a good breakfast. Just go through my classes like any other day. Maybe before a game, get a little like napping kind of. Eat a little bit before the game. Give me some energy. Other than that, I don't really have too many rituals. I have a prayer before the game, and then just go. Listen to music, get hyped up.
Get jacked up
with my
for the
boys.
game.
Get hyped up with my boys and.
All right, so after your senior year, what do you plan on doing?
Right now, if an offer comes my way, I was talking to Century College, and I think it's down in Kentucky or Ohio. I talked to them a little bit in the off season and some other small schools, but if an offer comes my way, I may pick it up. If not, I'm looking to just pursue a career, just go into business.
Well, Coach Bless just told me that you're out for our jobs. You're now doing the middle school announcing.
Watch out in a couple years.
You like that? That's fun, huh?
Oh, it's it started off as a kind of like I didn't know if I was going to be able to. I always tell Coach Bless, can I announce the JV games? And then one day I went to go check the 8th grade out, get out in the community a little bit, and Todd Griffith, David's dad, asked if I wanted to announce, and I just went from there. And it's a job. I'm impressed. Like, it gets real nerve-wracking up there.
But it's a lot of fun on game day.
Super fun.
That's great.
Especially when the fans react. It's great.
All right, that's Chad Piatek. He is our College Prospects of America Athlete of the Week. He's getting all psyched up like all of us are for this week's game, the game. The Brownsburg Bulldogs make their way into Hendricks Regional Health Stadium. Chad, good luck to you on Friday night. Best of luck.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to actually bring in Megan Eggenoff real quick. Simply because, they're going to be out and wanting to out and about on Friday. They've got some questions, or they got some answers to questions, and we're going to bring her in just real quick so that she can tell you what they've got out there. Megan, glad you could join us once again.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
You are going to be out at Plainfield on Friday. Big game. I believe they are taking on Greenwood on Friday night. But you and College Prospects of America are going to be out there. Tell us what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, so we're going to have a tent set up and just have some information. I'd be happy to talk with anyone about any recruiting questions that they have, or just wanting more information about what we do. Hoping for a big crowd, a lot of people there, and we're going to support Plainfield Athletics and just kind of be out there and show people we want our student athletes here in Hendricks County to go on and play a sport, if they have the ability and the desire to do so.
So it's a great opportunity, as some fans may see your tent out there and go, who are you? What are you doing? But, you're there to enjoy the football game, but you've also got a lot of athletes' parents, and whether they be football, basketball, volleyball, you name it, everybody seems to end up at the football game. So if they need to and they've got questions, this is why that booth is there, for them to come out and ask those questions.
Exactly. Yep.
All righty. Well, we want to make sure we get you plugged in here for that. They will be at Plainfield. Plainfield, I believe, is playing Greenwood this week. We'll be talking more about that in just a few moments. If you've got any questions about college recruiting, not only athletic recruiting, maybe you've got an academic scholarship, somebody that is looking to get an academic scholarship.
Right.
College Prospects of America can help with that as well.
Right.
So they'll be out at Plainfield. Megan will be there. A bunch of others from CPOA will also be out there. Megan, we thank you for stopping by.
Thanks, Brian.
All righty. When we come back, well, guess what we're going to do? Chris Worley and I are going to sit here and talk a whole lot of football as we get ready for the Bulldogs and the Orioles right here Friday night on 1610 AM XRB and Audio Sports Online. Right now at all Avon and Brownsburg McDonald's, you can check out the brand new Mighty Wings. Mighty Wings are hearty bone-in chicken wings that are crispy and breaded with a spicy kick. Available in 3-piece, 5-piece, or 10 pieces, a 3-piece is only $2.99 at all Avon and Brownsburg McDonald's. Are you a high school student athlete who would like to play at the next level, but are confused and unfamiliar with the college recruiting process? There is good news. College Prospects of America can help. We have been helping athletes get recruited since 1986. Right here in Central Indiana, we have representatives who offer personal and professional guidance to both male and female student athletes. Call us today at 317-650-4339 to learn all about recruiting and how we can help. Or come visit our booth this Friday, September 20th at the Plainfield High School football game. You only have one chance to get recruited. Act now. Contact College Prospects of America at 317-650-4339. Since 1984, BMO Harris Bank has grown to become one of the largest banks in the Midwest, serving personal, commercial, and affluent customers. Located locally at 610 West Northfield Drive in Brownsburg, we thank them for their sponsorship of the Hendricks County Coaches Show. Welcome back to the McDonald's Hendricks County Sports Show right here on 1610 AM XRB, XRBradio.com, and, of course, as always, on Audio Sports Online. We record these shows every Wednesday night at the Brownsburg and Avon area McDonald's. This week we are at the Avon McDonald's at 267. Next week we will be in Brownsburg at the McDonald's on Main Street. One of our guests will, of course, be head coach Brett Comer of the Brownsburg Bulldogs. We'll be talking to him about what happens this coming Friday night. And, of course, all of these tapings, we do them on Wednesday. You can see the video podcast Thursday on Audio Sports Online, and you can hear the audio replay every Friday at 5:30 on 1610 AM XRB and XRBradio.com as they get you all set up for Brownsburg Bulldog football, which, of course, this week, big game, the game. The Bulldogs of Brownsburg travel to Avon to take on the Avon Orioles, a pair of 1-3 teams. And joining me today and on Friday as my color analyst will be Mr. Christopher Worley. He's been doing all the Brownsburg Bulldogs games so far. And Chris, we look at this as a matchup of two 1-3 teams. If somebody just looked at the records and say, oh, they're rather even. But this is really a matchup of two teams going, in my view, opposite directions. You've got an Avon team that's been playing very well against high competition. Their last two losses against top 15 teams in their respective classes by a total of 3 points. Meanwhile, you've got a Bulldog team that has just been really, really struggling since really an opening season win against a very good McCutcheon team. McCutcheon is ranked in Class 5A. They have played very well. But since then, losses to Noblesville, Hamilton, Southeastern, Westfield. Given what we know today compared to the beginning of the season, Noblesville and Westfield are much, much better than what I think a lot of people gave them credit for. Same thing with Westfield. So the Bulldogs have run a bit of a gauntlet. Now they're going to take on an Oriole team that has just been on the cusp of, instead of being 1-3, 3-1.
Right. And, I would agree with that, opposite directions. When you look back at it, Brownsburg had such a big first win there, scored a lot of points versus McCutcheon. And just talking with some of the Brownsburg coaches and Coach Comer, they felt like, well, maybe the kids felt, hey, this is easy. You know, we come out in this, we know we're a young team, but we came out and got a big win that first week. Well, it hasn't been as easy since. So the offense has struggled. They are pretty much a one-dimensional team as far as rushing attack with Tokes, Akinrabade. Defenses stack against that run, and the coaches know that. So last week we saw a quarterback change. The freshman Hunter Johnson came in, and he did some things. He showed he can pass. Now, they didn't put him too much under the test. He had, I believe it was 14 attempts or 17 attempts. I'm sorry. Completed only 5 passes, but one of those was for 49 yards. So he threw the ball downfield a little bit, made some nice passes. So definitely 2 ways. Now, you talk about common opponents. They both did lose. Both these teams lost to both Westfield and Hamilton Southeastern, which, like you said, those are tough opponents.
Yeah, you're facing some of the more prolific offenses when you take a look at Southeastern, Westfield, Fishers. All 3 of those teams have really shown they can put points up on the board. The difference right now is we take a look at Avon's defense. They're only giving up a little over 17 points per game. Where right now, even in some of head coach Brett Comer's years with the Bulldogs, when their offenses haven't been great, he's usually always been able to rely on a very stout defense. This year, they're giving up over 32 points per game, and it's been the defense as well as the offense that has also given the Bulldogs a little bit of headaches this year.
Right, and one of the problems facing that defense, well, of course, several problems we could go over, but he's talked about it, how they have 9 new starters from last year, so we're replacing 9 out of 11 defensive players. But also because the offense gets one-sided and has not been able to sustain those drives, that defense is out on the field for a long time. And you can tell it in the second half. Now, last week was not hot conditions like it was the first few weeks. I don't feel they got worn down, but they're under pressure. They've got to make stops, and they're on the field most of the game so far.
Yeah, you mentioned time of possession. When you take a look at the Bulldogs' stats, you can already see their opponents have the ball for almost 5 minutes more than the Bulldogs do. And it's really been a matter of getting those touchdown drives. Their opponents, because of the defense being out there, and you basically are seeing these a lot late in games. If it really wasn't last week, Westfield got out to that big lead. Bulldogs did manage to put some points on the board, but it was late in the game against, I believe, second-teamers for Westfield. One of the things that Coach Comer talked to us about a week ago on the Hendricks County Sports Show is right now when you've got one bullet, and that's Tokes Akinrabade, you tend to load up in the box, and they're seeing a lot of 9-man fronts.
Right, no doubt. And we saw Hamilton Southeastern kind of dedicated almost both middle linebackers to just watching him and keying on him. So the Bulldogs did try to vary the offense a little bit, especially last week. Devontae Allen had kind of a breakout game. He had a touchdown, 88 yards receiving. He's number 21. They like to, in this flexbone offense, they like to move him before the snap. You'll see him run behind the quarterback. So he had a good game. They're trying to get the ball to some other people. The receivers are not experienced and skilled like they have been in the past. So it's just a combination of things that fueled this, we'll call it one-sided offense. But we'll see if Hunter Johnson, this is going to be a big game for him, a freshman coming into the game. They feel he's got the moxie, they call it, a good mental attitude, but he's going to be tested, I know, by the Avon defense this Friday night.
The Bulldogs, of course, they run the flexbone offense, something Coach Comer has done forever there. And it's an offense that when you've got at least the threat of a passing attack, something that you can get 10 to 15 yards downfield, it really opens up. Opens up the running game. It opens what they can do with those wingbacks. Last year we saw how effective Chase Dutra is. Of course, Chase Dutra now with Kevin Wilson down at IU. But this year that has been what has been missing. Tokes Akinrabade, he's still doing well. He's got 489 yards so far through the first 4 games. He's got 5 touchdowns and hasn't lost a ball yet either. He's been very reliable on that side of the ball. He's also got a couple of catches, not doing a whole lot out of the backfield, but usually what you see out of this Bulldog offense, you see a lot of action out of the wings, and we learned out of the Hamilton Southeastern game, Bulldogs came out of that game pretty badly beaten up.
Yeah, it was. They were out-physicaled in that contest, so I've seen some of Avon here. I don't know how physical a team they are. You can answer that, but it's going to be adjustment. I think one of my keys to the game for Brownsburg is they haven't done this too much. They did it against McCutcheon, and it really paid off, is force some turnovers on defense. And, get a fumble recovery here, a couple interceptions. We haven't seen them force the other offense into turnovers. And I think when your offense is struggling, if you can get a score any other way, a defensive score, a special team score, then that's going to help. And they need something like that this week.
And, of course, for a team like Brownsburg that is now has to be so concentrated on running the ball when you don't have the big play threat to at least stretch the field or get the defense thinking, sometimes that can really hurt. It's going to limit your offense, and it's going to limit it's really going to force the defense to just put the 9 in the box. Brownsburg, that has been their big key. Where is the offense going to come from? Again, you can key on Toksak and Rabati. He is still getting his yards. Mm-hmm. He's getting his yards, 489 yards through 4 games. So he's averaging still over 100 yards a game when everybody knows he's getting the ball. That's talent.
Right, and they're going to hit him again. They're going to use him. Now, last week he had 26 rushing attempts, more than the previous week. He's your horse. You're going to give him the ball. But one thing I do want to say that I think you're going to see a little improvement here is, the freshman quarterback, Hunter Johnson. He's made one start now. He's got a start under his belt. These coaches are going to be able to work with him this week, and I think you'll see some different things, and I would be surprised if he doesn't improve in this game. They're going to, I would imagine, they're going to do some, different kind of things in the passing game, maybe some short drops to Tokes coming out of the backfield. They've done it a few times this year, but you might see more of that. So I'm very confident that he will improve. In sports you say, well, some of your biggest improvements always from your first game to your second game. I think Hunter Johnson, you'll see that this week. Now, is the moment going to be big for him? Is he going to be mentally stressed and maybe a little nervous? Sure, when he comes out. But get a couple short, successful passes at the start, help him calm down. I'm sure he's developed in practice this week. I think he'll be better.
Defensively for the Bulldogs, as we concentrate on the Brownsburg Bulldogs going into this Friday's game against the Avon Orioles, I'm joined by my co-host Christopher Worley. He will be with me for the broadcast Friday night on Audio Sports Online in 1610 AM XRB and XRBradio.com. Defensively, the Avon Orioles, they're going to give you some looks, and they're going to be able to throw some a very talented running back. We talk about how well Toksak and Rabati has played. David Shaw, being thrust into the running back role. He was not the original starter when the Orioles started this season. They were instead going with Tywan Johnson, a smaller back, very quick, very explosive. But now David Shaw has pretty much taken over for Avon. He is still averaging over 140 yards a game. He is a strong running back, deceptively quick, and a running back that can shed that first tackle attempt, get past that, get extra yards. You see him at the line of scrimmage, he'll be stopped, what you think, for a minimal game, and then all of a sudden 6 yards downfield, he's got 4 defenders holding on to him, and he's making good yardage. But when you bring in the added threat of sophomore quarterback Brandon Peters, and Brandon Peters is going to be a name you're going to hear in Central Indiana for the next 3 years. Very, very mature beyond his age. He has not thrown an interception now in 2 games. Very elusive, very athletic, can make the big throws. He has a 50-yard plus arm, and that's going to be something that the Bulldogs defensively, now they've got to worry about the speed threat on the outside from Cress Kimbrough, a very good possession receiver in Sam Bloom, and a nice tight end in Matt Moore. That's going to be multiple things for the Bulldogs. They're not going to where the Orioles are going to be able to key on Toksak and Rabati. The Bulldogs are really going to have to stay on their toes for a multitude of threats.
Well, I would say so, sure. And, you talk about hearing about Brandon Peters. I know he's just a sophomore, but from a little bit north of here, I've heard about him plenty so far this season. And you think, well, he's just a sophomore, but he must be a very intelligent young man, to handle this offense and do well. One thing about the passing game of Avon versus Brownsburg secondary or whatever, I don't think you're going to face much of a better, varied spread offense passing attack than they did last week in Westfield. They were fantastic. Noblesville quarterback T.J. McKiernan that first week, I thought he was great. So they have faced a passing offense. Haven't done too great against it, but hopefully it's a learning experience for them, and they can battle this week against Avon. But you're right, they're going to have to watch both the pass and run game, certainly. Mr. Shaw has been impressive.
Brandon Peters this season, 42 of 77, 599 yards, 6 touchdowns, only 3 picks, and that came really in the first 2 contests. He's been outstanding. Meanwhile, David Shaw, he has rushed for 550 yards on the season, 3 touchdowns. I really expect Avon to come out, try to establish the run, as Coach Mark Bless talked about earlier. That's what they do, and that is something with Shaw. We're going to see Tywan Johnson. They've gotten great contributions from their fullbacks, Thomas Hicks and Shane Dillahay. Whether we see Derek Tennant, who was their big horse last season, remains to be seen. This will be his first game eligible to be back. He faced a 4-game suspension. He is eligible to come back this week, but as Coach Bless said, he's been running the scout team. A little different now to throw him in the game, put him at tailback, but still, that is something that we know the Orioles are going to want to do. Defensively for the Avon Orioles, they take more chances than most teams. You will see the Orioles dial up several blitzes. As we've noticed through the past few weeks, that linebacking core, T.J. Wilson, Matt Thompson, Zach Williams, Chad Piatek, who will come in. The Orioles run what is called a 3-3 defense. Most of last season into this season, you will see a lot more of what looks like a traditional 4-3, but occasionally they drop back into the 3-3. But their linebacking core has been outstanding, and then you really have to watch out for defensive back David Griffith. He will be all over the field.
Yeah, I was going to mention him. I know you had him on this show 2 weeks ago, and I was very impressed with the young man. And he had a great game, last Friday versus Fishers. And I know Coach Bless called him the quarterback of our defense. So, yes, Brownsburg's going to have to be aware of him. One thing I wanted to ask you about, too, in a game like this, Brian, a lot of times if it's close, it may come down to a big kick. Tell me about Avon's field goal kick.
Niles Edwards made some big kicks for them last year. Now, Niles has not had quite as good of a season this year, I would say, both punting and kicking, place kicking. He's missed a couple of extra points. He has snuck in a few field goals that, as Coach Dave Shelbourne said on last week's broadcast with Fishers, if you got points for style, the Orioles would have come away empty, but they got the 3, and we've known Niles Edwards can make the big kick. They haven't, when they've needed to, he has made that kick, but so far this season, the Westfield game, they were chasing a missed extra point. They came down to Fishers last week getting the big field goal to win the game. So right now, when you start looking at the kicking aspect, the biggest thing on special teams will be David Griffith in the punt return game. Okay. He has the capability to break it open. We've also seen Cress Kimbrough and various others back for kickoff. But nowadays you've got these high school kickers that almost every kick is a touchback. Mm-hmm. So we don't quite see it. We've seen Kimbrough on a couple of occasions take the chance at the 2. I can remember a kick just a couple of weeks ago. He took it at the 2, and, you sit there and go, no, great play as he runs it 40 yards the other way. Actually, it was against Fishers that he did that, and, Coach Shelbourne said, no, you got to let that go out of bounds, but when he returns it to the Fishers 47-yard line, you got to go, well, it's just a great play. So this is a game when you talk about momentum, even though the Bulldogs on paper look to be probably on the bottom side of the prediction coming into this game, momentum in special teams can really make a big difference in a game like this.
Sure, and that's why I think, oftentimes you see this in a big game like this, a turnover in those special teams, a fumble on a punt return, a kickoff return fumble, and I think, too, a punt return for a score would really help Brownsburg or to get a turnover late off a special teams play. I think that's the way. If something like that happens, Brownsburg has a better chance to win than just going offense against defense.
Coming into this series over the last 15 years, Avon's had the advantage. Again, this has been a series that neither team really, doesn't matter where they play, though the Orioles, they haven't played here at Avon in a long while. As Chad Piatek says, last time he saw a home game, he was in middle school. Coach Comer actually mentioned that until the loss earlier this year against Noblesville, going into that Noblesville game, it had it not been for a loss at Lucas Oil Stadium, Bulldogs would have been running a winning streak that would cover over 2 years.
Yeah, 2010, right.
It was a loss at Lucas Oil Stadium. I think it was 1917, something like that. I should know. I was there. I called it. It was, and that was a game that the Bulldogs actually let that game slip away from them. Now, Avon finally gets that home game, and I think the atmosphere, you're going to get to see it firsthand. I felt it with Fishers. That crowd really got into that game as it went down the stretch. And as I mentioned to Coach Bless, a fun game to watch. If you were a spectator, that was a great game to watch. If you're a coach and a player, it's not so great being on the other side. Avon's had the better of this matchup over the last 15 years. They're 11-8. But it's the Bulldogs that have won. I think they won last year by the score of 27-8. So we're going to see how well they go, how this game goes. It should be a fun game.
Oh, yeah, it is. And, of course, you mentioned the atmosphere. Part of that atmosphere in this series is the other team, the visiting team, always brings a good crowd. And I know you're going to see that on the Brownsburg visiting side, just as, the home games at Roark Stadium are packed. The visitor side is packed with the black and gold of the Avon fans. So but the fans' reaction and the fans' attendance at this game is always big. And, yes, it will be a very exciting atmosphere. I think it's going to be really important for Brownsburg to get off to a good start, not get behind in that first quarter. If they can get off to a good start, get a little confidence, maybe the first couple drives, keep the ball 8, 9 plays, or even get a score on those first couple series, that would really help them try to gain a positive outcome to this game.
And for the Bulldogs, I think their key, defense. If they can keep Avon and keep that game for their offense, I think their offense, under a freshman quarterback, it's going to take a drive or two as they start to click in. If their defense can keep them in the game for the first quarter, first into the second, and make it a one-possession game or something like that, then the Bulldogs have a great chance. For the Orioles, they could, if they start quick, this could get over really, really easily. The one concern that might come into this week, we are expected to have thunderstorms on Friday night. If we do get the rain, and, of course, if we do get the lightning, we could be in for a long Friday night. Of course, we don't have to worry about the field conditions deteriorating at Avon High School because they have the field turf now like Brownsburg does. Lightning, that changes everything. But if we get into a steady rain, we might see with the two young quarterbacks, a freshman and a sophomore, both coaches a little less likely to put the ball in the air. Then we could have an interesting game as far as running backs with Akinrabadi and Shaw. That's going to be fun to watch. Other games on Friday as we close out the Hendricks County Sports Show here at the Avon McDonald's at 267. We talked about College Prospects of America. We were talking with their representative, Megan Eganoff. She will be at Plainfield this week as the Quakers will take on the Greenwood Woodmen in a good old-fashioned Mid-State Conference rivalry. The Quakers, well, they suffered their first loss of the season, and they did it against a team that, for some reason, Coach Woodard, they just don't like meeting up Coach Cyphers and the the Roncalli Rebels. They fall 42-17. That's their first loss of the season, and I know for Coach Woodard that was a big game. It had been circled all year long. No matter who they have on their schedule, Roncalli is the team they want to beat.
Sure, that's become a big rivalry, and I know their kids had to be hurting bad after that. And when I thought about I looked at who's their next opponent, and if it's at home, I kind of felt sorry for them. Well, it's Greenwood. Greenwood is 2-2 on the season. So I would imagine that Plainfield will come back in good style for that game.
Mike Campbell, the head coach of Greenwood, last year he had one of the most explosive offenses in Central Indiana. Unfortunately, the players that made up that explosive offense all graduated. Not quite as explosive this year. Defense has also let them down, though. They are coming off of a win against Mooresville, but the Pioneers, they are really been down this past year.
Just one more note about Plainfield. Of course, they got off to that big 3-1 start and raised some expectations. I would imagine they'll get this win against Greenwood at home. But, then, Brian, I looked at their schedule. It's made up of 5A teams the rest of the way. They're at Decatur Central, Franklin, at Whiteland, and then Martinsville at home. So a big-time schedule the rest of the way. This second half of the season, they needed that 3-1 start because they're going to be tested here in the second half. We'll find out what they're made of here.
You mentioned Decatur Central. If you ever get to go see a Decatur Central football game, Justin Dixon, they picked up their first win last week. They will run that scoreboard until it's smoking. Now the problem for the Hawks is they give up a lot of points, but they got their first win this past week. We'll be talking how to tell you about it here in just a moment. But that is going to be a big game, and if you want to test your defense, now for Coach Brian Woodard, he probably knows that going into that game they're going to put up points. Everybody does. But it is pretty much somebody asked me about the Hawks, and I said, yeah, it reminds me of the New York Knicks under Mike D'Antoni. They'll score a lot of points, and then they'll just say, here, go through so we can get back on offense.
Score back on you. Yeah.
And so that'll be an interesting, and it could be a very fun game. But it is at Decatur Central. And Quakers, just being in that mid-state conference, they face a lot of 5A. And, of course, we talked to Coach Brian Woodard a couple of weeks ago, and, really Plainfield was just a few students short of making that jump to 5A. You had a lot of teams with the tournament success factor that ended up being moved into 5A, and that kind of pushed Plainfield down. But Plainfield could easily be in 5A. They just happen to be, because of some of these the new ratings that the IHSAA uses, they stay in 4A, but they always play tough competition. Yeah. And one of the things, Coach Woodard, if you look, they had the big win at Columbus North. The past 2 years they played against the Kokomo Wildcats, another 6A team, beat them both times. So he likes to play tough competition. And the Quakers this year, they're bearing some of the fruits. They're playing very, very well. Unfortunately for the Danville Warriors, the same cannot be said for them. Russell Sumner, in his third year at the school, they are 1-3. They're coming off a loss to Tri-West by the score 34-6. And that Danville explosive offense from last year, well, it's kind of been tucked away. They're only averaging a little over 15 points per game. They are giving up almost 40 points per game, and they're going to be playing a Webo team, Western Boone, that has been playing very well, very good football over the last few years. In fact, they destroyed Crawfordsville 55-9 last week as the Stars put up over 35 points per game, and they're being very stingy on defense, only giving up about 10.
Wow, yep, I know Webo's 3-1. Yeah, for some reason they always feature good quarterback play. Now I haven't seen them this year, so I don't know that, but scoring that many points, you would think so. I know that loss hurt Danville. That's for that helmet. It's a big rivalry game, and Tri-West just really put one on them there.
So it'll be Danville trying to get to 2-3 as we are at the halfway point. Now, we'll talk about that in a second, but it doesn't feel like we should be. But we are at the halfway point in the IHSAA season. Tri-West, well, they got the win last week against Danville. They will now face a North Montgomery team where the Chargers are 3-1. They're coming off of a 35-6 victory over Frankfort. This game will be at North Montgomery for Tri-West. Coach Chris Call, they made the jump from 2A to 3A last year. Kind of caught some people by surprise. They had a really good season last year. But as it goes in high school football, much like it does college, you get people graduating, you get kids going, and it changes the makeup of your team. This year, they've been a fairly balanced team, decent offense, decent defense, but they just haven't been able to put it up any type of consistency. Loss, win, loss, win. They would like to get some back-to-back wins, but it'll be a tough road to haul against North Montgomery.
Yeah, at North Montgomery there. And, you mentioned we're halfway here in this Sagamore Conference. Lebanon leads it at 2-0. Now, these teams have not played too many conference games. Tri-West and Danville, they're 1-1 in the conference. So both really still have a chance to do something, at least within the conference here in the second half of their season. But, that's going to be a test up there at North Montgomery. That'll be tough for Tri-West this Friday night.
North Montgomery on this year, as I mentioned, 3-1. Their 3 wins, they've given up only 6 points.
Wow.
Their lone loss was in overtime to Southmont, 28-27. So the Chargers, they can put a stick to you on defense. And again, we mentioned it. Chris was with me last week for the Hendricks County Sports Show in Brownsburg. One of the surprise team in Hendricks County that really isn't getting any run is the Cascade Cadets. Coach Jason Thompson has them playing extremely good football, and they are now 3-1 after defeating Clinton Central by the score of 46-0. They will be taking on the Cloverdale Clovers this week. Cloverdale finally got off the schneid. They defeated Turkey Run 52-0 last week. But for Cloverdale, they're going to be coming into this game. This game is they are hosting this game against Cascade, facing a Cascade team, putting up almost 35 points per game. They're doing very well offensively.
Yeah, Cascade, opened their season by winning at Crawfordsville 38-32. Then they had a loss to Monrovia, but then wins over North Putt 28-14, and then Clinton Central 46-0. So this may be one of the most exciting teams in the in Hendricks County. I'm glad to be doing the broadcast, of course, every Friday now. I'll be really glad to be at the big Avon Brownsburg game, but I wish I had a Friday night off so I could go see Cascade.
Coach Thompson, again, he's only in his second year at the helm of the Cadets, and they went through a tough road to haul last year, but they're playing very good football. Looks like he is quickly turning this program around. The Cascade, if you might remember, 7, 8 years ago, they had some really good programs, played some really good football back then. Then it kind of fallen off by the wayside, but now making a bit of a resurgence. So we wish the Cadets best of luck this week as they play Cloverdale. That is at Cloverdale. Let's take a look at the conference standings as we wrap up today's show. In the Hoosier Crossroads Conference, Fishers, Hamilton Southeastern, McCutcheon, Noblesville, and Westville. That is a mouthful. They are all at 3-1. Zionsville is now at 2-2. The Bulldogs, Orioles, Lafayette, Jefferson 1-3, and Harrison is 0-4. Last week we mentioned the Tigers beat the Orioles 26-25. It was Westfield 37, Brownsburg 13. Hamilton Southeastern defeated Zionsville. A lot of people were looking at that game to see how Zionsville would play, but Southeastern, they come away with the victory. McCutcheon, ever since that loss to Brownsburg, they haven't lost since. They defeated Harrison 24-19, and Noblesville got the victory over Jeff 24-13. Games this week, we've already mentioned Bulldogs, Orioles. Southeastern is at Jeff. Harrison is at Fishers. That could be over before the second quarter. Noblesville is at McCutcheon. That should be a good game. And another bellwether game, Zionsville will be at Westfield. That is how this week's schedule wraps up. In the Mid-State Conference, Whiteland is leading the conference at 2-0, 3-1 overall. You got three teams at 3-1, Whiteland, Plainfield, and Martinsville. Plainfield has played their first Mid-State game. They are 1-0. They played their first Mid-State a couple weeks ago. They're 1-0. Martinsville 1-1. Greenwood 1-1. Decatur Central 1-1. Get this for a stat. Decatur Central, through 4 games, has scored 239 points. They have given up 231. That will be must-see Friday night if you can get to see a Decatur Central game. Franklin is 3-1 overall, but they're 0-1 in the conference, and Mooresville looking for their first win. 0-4 overall, 0-2 in the conference for the Pioneers. It's been tough this year. They've only scored 27 points offensively. Last week, it was Decatur Central picking up their first win. They defeated Martinsville 64-40. Greenwood over Mooresville 33-13. I mentioned Plainfield fell to Roncalli 42-17, and Whiteland defeated Franklin 41-31. Games of this week, I think it is at Lucas Oil Stadium. Decatur Central is at Mooresville. Franklin is at Martinsville. Greenwood is at Plainfield. And Whiteland is at New Palestine. The Dragons 4-0 on the season. That should be a very good game. In the Sagamore Conference, as Chris mentioned, Lebanon leads the SAG with a record of 2-0 in conference play. They are undefeated, 4-0 overall. Then it's North Montgomery, Western Boone, Southmont, Tri-West, Danville, Frankfort. They are all 1-1 in the conference. The North Montgomery and Western Boone 3-1 overall. Southmont and Tri-West 2-2. Danville and Frankfort 1-3 overall. And then Crawfordsville rounds out the Sagamore 0-2 in the conference, 0-4 overall. Last week, Lebanon over Southmont 34-8. North Montgomery defeated Frankfort 35-6. It was the Bruins defeating the Warriors 34-6, and Western Boone over Crawfordsville 55-9. This week, Crawfordsville is at Southmont. Frankfort is at Lebanon. The Bruins are at North Montgomery, and Webo travels to Danville. And finally, in the West Central Conference, Greencastle and South Putnam on top of the conference with 1-0 records. Greencastle 4-0 overall, South Putnam 3-1, followed by Monrovia. The Bulldogs are 2-1 in the conference play, 2-2 overall. Cascade 1-1 in conference play, but 3-1 overall, followed by Cloverdale 0-1 in conference play, 1-3 overall, and North Putnam rounds out the West Central 0-2 in conference play, 0-4 overall. Last week we mentioned the Cadets beat Clinton Central 46-0. It was Cloverdale in a rout over Turkey Run 52-0. Greencastle 48. Noblesville homeschool. I don't know if they just go around the neighborhood and pick up kids for the game on Friday, but they fell to Greencastle 48-27. South Putnam defeated North Putnam in their big rivalry game 22-7, and Triton Central 34, Monrovia 6. This week, Cascade is at Cloverdale, Greencastle is at North Putnam is at North Davies, and Speedway, Sparkplugs travel to Monrovia to take on the Bulldogs.
One more note about Cascade. Going to be important for them to win this week because next week they are at Speedway. Speedway always good.
Boy, that's a lot of football, and I hope you enjoyed it. We are going to be at Avon this week as Chris Worley will be joining me on the call. The Avon Orioles, the Brownsburg Bulldogs. We simply call it The Game. Pre-game show will be at 6:45 with a kickoff set for 7 o'clock. You can watch that game on Audio Sports Online. You can also listen to the game in Brownsburg, 1610 AM XRB, and you can listen on the web at xrbradio.com. Should be a fun game. It's always a fun time. Chris, I want to thank you for joining me this week. I will see you on Friday night. We will see you guys next time next week. We will be at the Brownsburg McDonald's on Main Street. My guest will be head coach head coach Brett Comer, as we will, I'm sure, be talking about this Friday's game. Our guests tonight have been Avon head coach Mark Bless, Avon senior linebacker Chad Piatek. I want to thank them for coming. Also want to thank Chad for being College Prospects of America Athlete of the Week. The McDonald's Hendricks County Sports Show has been brought to you by our title sponsor, McDonald's, College Prospects of America, and BMO Harris Bank. So glad you could join us for McDonald's Hendricks County Sports Show here on 1610 AM XRB and xrbradio.com. Until next time, so long, everybody.